Shalom. Giving all praises to Yahweh by Shemi Hawashai. Double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone. Yahweh by Shemi Hawashai's peace be bestowed unto you, hopefully elect. I'm your brother Yahweh call from Great Millstone, Orlando. And just to speak on this for this defense, the budget for this defense, and how Trump is demanding. He has demanded, and it appears those demands have been met. As far as this Trump demanding these this 5% of the GDP from these EU nations, basically the beast, and just looking into it and studying it a little bit, because Trump, since the first time they was in office, basically talking shit against NATO, EU, which again consists of the beast, and just basically talking shit about how these guys need to contribute more, and to stop being freeloaders and things of that nature, just being stout, like the scriptures say, So, like I said, just studying, looking into this a little bit, and the effects, or the possible effects of this agreement, because again, I do believe they did in fact come to this agreement that they were going to follow through with this 5% GDP for the defense spending. All right. So, I just got this video here in Slocky. I'm still on the plantation and fucking dozing off and shit. So bear with me. But I just got this video here by Redacted. I'm just gonna play it, get into it.
Showed up at the NATO summit today, letting everyone know what his priorities are. Here he steps off the plane in Europe and he puts on his USA hat. This is how he's going to meet with NATO leaders to tell them, we are not paying for your security anymore. We want you to pay up or else. I'm not quite sure what that or else means. I hope it's big. As a parent,
closes down NATO altogether?
I really do want that, but I've been wanting that for a long time. And as a parent, I don't like empty threats. If you say you're going to take away the screen time, you got to. Am I right? Well, in fact, the president is reportedly not even going to go to the NATO meetings, but just show up at the dinners and then let the rest of them kind of come to him. Now, the president and the vice president have been telling NATO members that they need to commit to spending 5% of their country's GDP to NATO, and we want to see you put your money where your mouth is. But NATO leaders are trying to be super shady about this, and I hope that the president can see right through this. Now, the president posted this on Truth Social today after Spain said that they would only pay 2.5% into NATO. This chart shows how little everyone else spends compared to the US. Very few of them even hit 2%. How did Poland get so screwed to be spending so much all along when the rest of them are just kind of flying under the radar, not paying their fair share? Why don't they get the youngest child deal, I wonder? The UK says that they will increase their NATO spending, but they're doing it just with tricky bookkeeping. They're not actually going to commit more defense. What they're doing is called smoke and mirrors, according to the Telegraph. They're not actually going to put any new money in. What Keir Starmer is doing is counting old infrastructure projects and calling them new defense spending, which is a ruse. So if you are buying this BS line that the UK needs more defense and will spend more, you're going to get nothing for that except for old projects. It's a journal entry. They're not actually going to spend more money. Opponents of this say you can't stop missiles with spreadsheets. You're not actually doing anything new. Do you think President Trump will not see right through this? Like, oh yeah, we're going to basically... Someone says, well, how much are you spending on your kids' tuition? And you're like, well, I bought them school clothes last year. So does that count? That counts into what I'm committing? Absolutely not. Spain says they're not going to come up to this 5%, full stop. They say that NATO's pledge allows each country level flexibility. So they say our level is 2.1%. That's what we want to pay, and that's what we're sticking with. Now, what they say is that they can't afford more defense because it would cause them to cut social programs, which should piss you as an American right off, because what they get in Spain, they're saying, we want to keep giving our people free healthcare, early retirement, 35-hour work week, Americans don't get that. We want to keep doing that, which means we can't pay into our defense. So we as Americans will keep paying for their military, and they will keep having a cushy life. Now, I feel this acutely, having lived for 5 years on the Iberian Peninsula, treating like this gauche American.
And you see people have mixed feelings about this. You know, some people are with it, of course. Others are against it, because as they're going into, you know, as far as these countries that had to produce this 5%, again, you know, pretty much taken away from their economies, you know, taken away from social programs and free healthcare and things of that nature, you know.
And we get disrespected, but our tax dollars subsidize their good lifestyle. Like, we as Americans don't know the good life. Well, no, because we work harder to support your good life. Michael Schellenberger put it this way recently, and I feel this in my bones. Watch.
We go to Europe. You have universal health care. You work 35 hours a week. You retire at a young age. You don't work nearly as hard as we do in the United States. You have many more benefits, in large part because we pay for all of your security, or a large part of it. And in return, we just get disrespect, entitlements, like we're like your children. And this is a dysfunctional relationship. It needs to end. It needs to change.
Okay, so is this summit where President Trump makes this change and says to Europeans, you don't get this cush life because we pay your military anymore? Or will he be hoodwinked by these journal entry type things? Now, here's how these spoiled brats are going to try to convince the president that our support is absolutely necessary. It's war emergency. NATO leader Mark Rutte keeps screaming that the Russians are coming, but he can't exactly say why or when. Here is today EU Commissioner Ursula von der Leyen saying that they are already at war with Russia, so that's why it's absolutely necessary to beef up all of their military spending on our dollar. Here is her absolute lying, ugly face. Watch.
You're adapting to the new reality of a full-scale war right here on European soil. And just like your industry, all of Europe is facing a changing international landscape. But in recent months, Europe has taken action. Action that seemed unthinkable just a year ago. We set up the Rearm Europe plan to mobilize indeed 650 billion euros in defense investment over the next 4 years. We must build more bridges between civilian and military. We know that Russia will be capable of testing our mutual defense commitments within the next 5 years.
And from what it sounds like, it just almost sounds like Joel. Matter of fact, I get it. I'm tired as hell, and I don't want to misquote it. Joel, because this is what this sounds like. Again, basically to strengthen, to add more into, defense. Building up, your arsenal and things of that nature. It sounds like this here in Joel. Bear with me. Which again, people are having mixed emotions about it. Some people are with it, because for a lot of these simple Babylonians that actually have some type of sense, and they see what's going on, paying attention to geopolitics and things of that nature. That's why some people are with it for the most part, because again, we're basically tax-paying dollars, supporting a lot of these nations, So again, from that aspect, you can see why, you would understand why some people are with it, And I'm gonna grab this real quick in Joel 3. In verse 10, it says, verse 9, Joel 3 and 9, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears, let the weak say I am strong. Because like I said, this is what this sounds like, because again, these EU nations that are pretty much living good, for the most part, sliding good, And that's why again, Trump is demanding at this summit. He's demanding this 5%. And of course, this is all part of his MAGA. It's all part of him basically propping him up, because people, they you got those that are praising Trump for this action, because of course Trump being the great last white hope, man, the last great white hope, being propped up as the savior, and this is supposed to all a part of all a part of the whole, like I said, just the whole making America great again. All right. They're talking about how this is the golden age, right? So Trump is getting a lot of praise and credit, being propped up as his savior, even with these ceasefires, again, basically Trump, man, he's more and more being portrayed as the good guy, with the ceasefire, which that's going to be very short-lived, but the ceasefire over there in Western Asia, all right, Israel and Iran, Trump is taking credit for that, he's taking credit for all these things. It's all theater, geopolitics, is to make him look like make him look like the good guy, that he's actually, gonna do as if he's actually doing good, So this is just another one of those ploys. All right. Like I said, because a lot of these EU nations, man, and how they're basically they're sliding good, that's why again Trump is demanding that 5%, which again I do believe they in fact did come to that agreement. The nations they did agree, So, like I said, looking into the possible effects of these EU nations, and how, because again, with this being said, with all this being said, it's going to take away from what I've been looking into. It's going to take away from these social programs of these EU nations. All right, it's going to take away from the social programs. All right, the free health care and things of that nature. So like I said, that's why certain people have that's why there's mixed emotions. And again, how I'm looking at it, it can be this could be just more division, Esau against Esau, a house being divided against itself. I'll play a little more of this.
I thank you for this opportunity to engage with you. Long live Europe, and thank you very much.
I'm just telling you.
Give me 1 second. No, I don't. It's actually in my other car. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. It's actually in my other car. No problem. No problem, sorry. Oh shit. Alright, let me play that back.
Action that seemed unthinkable just a year ago. We set up the Rearm Europe plan to mobilize indeed 650 billion euros in defense investment over the next 4 years. We must build more bridges between civilian and military. We know that Russia will be capable of testing our mutual defense commitments within the next 5 years. I thank you for this opportunity to engage with you. Long live Europe, and thank you very much.
I'm just telling you, Russia's coming for you in the next 5 years. Thanks, everybody. This has been great.
And I'm so glad to see all my European allies here who are getting ready for Putin's invasion of Europe. So, as one douchebag in the chat just said, he's like, redacted is paid propaganda by Putin, Russian propagandists. Yeah, okay. That might have worked like 3 years ago.
So stupid. I'm not even going to be bothered with that dumb shit. She's obviously lying. Russian state media has put a limit on where this war ends. We've gone over this and over it and over again. You can refuse to see it if you want, but RIA's state media defines the war on that map right there. The dark gray is where this ends. They've never said they wanted the rest of Ukraine. They never said they wanted Europe. Why the heck would Russia want these countries full of spoiled brats. I'm not saying you Europeans, you have no power. Europeans themselves, lovely people, they have no power. Their government has a government that makes decisions to basically make their lives miserable. You know it and I know it. No European thinks the EU makes their lives better. I don't know anyone who would. Okay, and then speaking of spoiled brats, again, not Europeans, European leaders. Zelensky is not going to be in the NATO summit meetings, but he does get to go to the dinner and pose for photo ops. What he's saying here basically is a lot of crap. NATO's still behind him. We're still going to sanction Russia, blah, blah, blah. I mean, he's not even really in the room where it happened. He's just literally like waiting in the hallway for his photo op, says some strong things about Russia, and then he's out. And on the plane to this NATO summit, President Trump was asked if he's still trying to broker a deal between Russia and Ukraine. He said, absolutely yes, I would like Putin to come to the negotiation table. He says, you know, Putin called to see if I'd like help with Iran, and I was like, no, I got it. Don't need your help there, but I need you to, you know, get a deal done with.
So that's pretty much the point there. Just going to go into some more information dealing with how, you know, the possible effects. You know, just typing this in on Google, you know, I got one article here. It says NATO, it says the 5% of GDP for defense is impossible for many countries. It goes on to say it would be a huge jump in military spending, and that's why I read that Joel 3, you know, because what it's supposed to be for the resources that's supposed to be coming in to build these economies up, you know, well, they have to take those resources and gear it towards war. To have to use it towards war. All right. So the fact that they would have to boost, well, like I said, it said it would be a huge jump in military spending that would create dire problems for the state budgets of virtually all European NATO member states, jeopardizing education, healthcare, and pensions. You know, you know, and because, you know, to show you how dumb these simple Babylonians are, you know, the fact that they've over the past few years, you know, they've raised the retirement age, you know, and the fact that these Babylonians aren't doing anything, you know, they're not in an uproar, you know, but yet. And that's why we've seen over the years, you know, these uproars like in Greece and certain places, you know, the same things going on in other nations. This is why you have what we've seen over the years, uproars of the people, all right, raising the retirement age, you see, because people, again, these Babylonians are dumb, and that's why it's just like, what is it going to take for these Babylonians to you know, really be at each other's throat? You know, what is it going to take? You know, because you've got protests in other nations, man, for far less, you know. These people are tearing shit up in these other nations around the world for far less. So it's like, what's wrong with these simple Babylonians, you know? Because that pension, you know, people don't play about them pensions, man, them 401ks and stuff, you know. And Lord willing, maybe, you know, when they start tapping into that, you know, that's what'll, you know, rouse these people up, you know. Let me just try to get the good stuff. It says, reading on, it says that was the outcome of the Atlantic Alliance Summit in The Hague, where it was announced allies will contribute at least 3.5% of annual national GDP based on NATO's agreed definition of defense spending by 2035 to fund core defense requirements and achieve NATO's military capability objectives, as noted in the final declaration of the Alliance Summit. It says 1.5% will be allocated to the more general needs of the so-called security sectors, quote unquote. In total, each country's commitment would amount to 5% of annual GDP. And if you can pretty much read between the lines, hey, you know, these elites, man, they're going it's you can easily say, man, the elites are going to be get more and more richer, you know. The elites are going to get more and more richer, you know. They're going to take that money, they're gonna take those finances, man. It says European experts are already sounding the alarm. To quote, I don't really believe that all countries can reach 5% of GDP on military spending. Moreover, it should be remembered that 5% is a general figure, since specifically for military and defense spending, it is prescribed to reach 3.5 of GDP by 2030, while the remaining 1.5 refers to infrastructure that could theoretically be used for civilian purposes, unquote. And of course, I mean, you can read between the lines, But yeah, that's pretty much it on that, See if I find anything else juicy. Because again, the point being overall that, this is going to take away from the average individual, the average civilian. All right. And this can be fuel to the fire, as far as again, ultimately the beast hating the whore, because as we're seeing right now with this whole Western Asia conflict, so-called Middle Eastern conflict, all right, as we see, as the scriptures say, the least of the flock drawing them out, Now, of course, it's not going to go fully kinetic until that chip is mandated. But nevertheless, the pieces are being moved around. Yahweh Bashar Shah is moving and putting everything into place. All right. So the fact that America is getting involved, and as we've been saying, once Iran and Israel go at it, eventually the big dogs are going to get dragged in, from Russia, Babylon, and which is going to lead to ultimately America's destruction. All right, because that's another, again, more fuel to the fire, because that's another thing, the fact that America's getting involved, and these EU nations, they don't want to get involved. They don't want War 3. They don't want World War 3. And on top of that, because there was talks of, Trump was pretty much asked a question about, because they're trying to, paint the narrative that Russia's going to invade Europe, and so on and so forth, and so they were asking Trump about Article 5, and he basically, because it was pretty much a straightway answer, basically he was being asked, is he going to honor the Article 5, and he basically kind of danced around it, he didn't give a complete answer, so now the European nations, they're like, well, they're yiffy, he didn't give a straightway answer, he kind of danced around it, so that's again just more fuel to the fire, and the beast hating no whore, all these things, man, is fuel to the fire, as far as the beast hating no whore, man, so like I said, just one thing is going to lead to another eventually, so like I said, just paying attention to this NATO summit. All right, go ahead and go to this in Revelation 17, because something's going to happen to where eventually even America's allies are going to shoot their missiles, completely turning this place into the lake of fire that we read about in the scriptures. Something's going to happen. So with all this being said, it's all just fuel to the fire, and of course we just have to sit back and wait and see how it plays out. But nevertheless, it's cooking. Revelation 17. We just get to the point. Revelation 17 is at 14. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. For he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and that they are with him, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. So that's why we look forward to, because right now, prophecy is the top of everyone's tongue. Everyone's talking about prophecy. I just had a so-called black woman at that, that I work with here on the plantation, and she's aware of certain things, she because knowing me, and how a lot of us brothers are, we for the most part we play dumb, we play like we don't know anything. So this Evite, man, she's always, well, every now and then, we talk, and she catches herself trying to school me and things, as if I don't know what's going on, but nevertheless, you could tell that she's nervous. She's fearful, as these people should be. These people, they're afraid, as they should be. These people should be afraid, because everyone's talking about prophecy. All right, everyone's talking about prophecy, and they're afraid. Everyone's afraid, as they should be. But to those of us in the know, hey, we know what's to come of this. All right, and that's why we look forward to these things coming to pass. All right, because again, one thing is going to lead to another. All right, World War III is prophesied to take place in the Bible, and from there, all right, that's going to usher in the deliverance of the elect, salvation unto the elect, and before we know it, we're going to be in the kingdom. The kingdom's going to be established on earth, so let them come on with it already. But it says, verse 15, and he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, the peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. So this beast, all right, the 10 horns, all right, it consists of NATO and the EU, all right, and what is this whore? It's talking about Babylon, America, all right. So something's going to happen to where, like I said, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. So something's going to happen to where, hey, because of course, obviously, NATO, EU, America, they're all in alliances, but something's going to happen to where even America's alliances, our allies are going to say, the hell with America, all right, and they're going to shoot their missiles on America. So with all this being said, man, it's just more fuel to the fire. Like I said, more fuel to the fire. So it's just something to, something interesting. Like I said, just looking into this, all right, and how this could possibly affect those European nations. All right, but of course, again, we just have to continue to sit back and wait and let the Lord do His thing. So Lord, only this was edifying, giving all praise to you. How about Shema Shai? Shalom to you, hopefully, like.